You're at the grocery store. You reach for plantains. A woman next to you smiles. Oh, you cook African food? You're African. You are African food. But she said it like you're a white person who discovered something exotic. You smile back. Yeah, you don't correct her because correcting means explaining, and explaining means exposing how little you belong anywhere. Later that week, you're on a video call with your mother. She's speaking your language. You respond in English. She switches to English, but her disappointment is in every syllable. You're forgetting. She doesn't say out loud. You're not forgetting. You're just living in a place where that language doesn't have space to exist fully. You hang up. You look in the mirror. Who are you in this moment? The person the woman at the store didn't recognize as African, or the person your mother doesn't recognize as hers anymore? Both. Neither. Something in between that doesn't have a name. How did leaving one place make you a stranger to yourself? Let me show you where this fracture lives. It's your accent, not the one you have, the one you don't have. You're in a meeting, professional, articulate. Your accent is neutral, which is just code for sounds like us. Then your mother calls. Your mouth shifts. Different rhythm, different words, different person. You don't notice anymore, but your coworker does. Wait, you have an accent? Yeah, it's just not for you. It's Sunday dinner. Your family is speaking the home language, fast, fluid, full of jokes. You're listening, understanding, but when you try to respond, the words come out slower, clumsier. Your little cousin whispers, "Why does she talk like that?" Like what? Like someone who lives in two languages, but owns neither completely. It's your name. You have three versions. The one your parents gave you, full, correct, meaningful. The one your friends use, shortened, Americanized, easier. The one on your Starbucks cup, unrecognizable. And you answer to all of them because you've learned belonging means making yourself digestible. Here's one most people don't talk about. It's your wedding, if you're planning one. Half your family has never left the country, can't afford passports, can't get visas, can't take time off from work that won't hold their jobs. The other half has been here for years. They expect a Western wedding, white dress, open bar, first dance. You're trying to blend both. Traditional ceremony, modern reception, two outfits, two sets of expectations. But here's what nobody tells you. You can't blend what was never meant to exist in the same space. So you end up with a wedding that's too traditional for half the room and too Western for the other half. And you're in the middle, apologizing to everyone for not being enough of what they expected. That's migration, not the plane ticket, the permanent state of apologizing for your complexity. And if you've ever felt like you're performing different versions of yourself depending on the room, you know this isn't about visas. It's about the person you become when who you are depends on where you are. So, what's actually happening? Why does moving your body also move your identity? Here's what people who stayed see when they look at you. They see someone who left, who wanted more, who thought this place wasn't enough. And when you come back changed, speaking a little differently, dressing a little differently, seeing things a little differently, it confirms what they feared. You did think you were better, and now you've become proof of it. From this perspective, migration is abandonment with a plane ticket. You chose somewhere else over here. You chose a new language over the one that raised you. You chose a life that doesn't include them in any meaningful way. When you send money, it helps, but it also hurts because money says, "I'm doing well without you." Money says, "I can help you from a distance, but I can't come back." They're not being unfair. They're grieving the person you were, the relationship you had, the future you were supposed to share. And grief sounds like, "You've changed. You think you're too good for us now. You've forgotten where you came from." But what it means is, "I miss you, and I'm angry that you're unreachable now." Now here's what the person who left experiences. You didn't leave to abandon anyone. You left to survive. Maybe the economy collapsed. Maybe there were no jobs. Maybe you weren't safe. Maybe your education meant nothing there but could mean everything somewhere else. You left because staying meant shrinking, and you watched too many people shrink. But leaving meant something you didn't fully understand until you arrived. Leaving meant losing your fluency in your own culture. You still speak the language, but you don't speak it every day anymore. So when you go back, you reach for words that used to come automatically, and they're slower, farther away. You still know the customs, but you don't live them anymore. So when you participate, there's a beat of hesitation, a moment where you have to remember instead of just knowing. And people notice that beat, that hesitation, and they interpret it as distance. But it's not distance. It's just what happens when you live somewhere else. You gain fluency in the new place by losing fluency in the old place. Not all of it, but enough that people notice. And here's the part that breaks you. You didn't choose this. You thought you could keep both. You thought you could be fully yourself in both places. But migration doesn't work like that. To survive in the new place, you had to adapt, you had to code switch, you had to smooth out your accent, you had to make yourself easier to understand, easier to hire, easier to like, and adaptation over time becomes who you are. So when you go back and people say, you've changed, they're not wrong. You have changed. But you changed because staying the same would have meant staying invisible, staying unemployable, staying outside. From this perspective, migration isn't abandonment, it's survival at the cost of self. Both sides are seeing loss. They just can't see the same loss. The people who stayed lost you. The person who left lost themselves. And neither side knows how to mourn something the other side can't see. So let's look at how this happens, because migration has always existed, but the way it fractures identity, that's shaped by specific forces. Let me take you into the moment everything changes. It's 2001, you're 26. You just landed in London from Accra. You have 2 suitcases, a university degree, and your cousin's address. The airport is massive, cold. The signs are all in English, but somehow you still feel like you can't read them. Your cousin picks you up. First thing he says, listen, you need to change how you talk. People here won't understand you. You've been speaking English your whole life, but apparently not the right English. First week, you go to a job interview. You're qualified. You have a degree in engineering. The interviewer looks at your CV. Impressive. But do you have UK experience? You say no, because you just got here. He says, unfortunately, we need someone with local experience. You leave. You realize your 5 years of experience don't count because they happened in the wrong country. You take a job at a call center. You're overqualified by a decade, but it pays, and you need to send money home. Your supervisor pulls you aside after a week. I'm going to need you to work on your accent. Customers are having trouble understanding you. You go home that night and practice. You listen to British radio. You mimic. You soften your R's. You flatten your vowels. You make yourself understandable. 3 months in, you call home. Your mother answers. You sound different, she says. You do, because sounding the same would have gotten you fired. Here's what nobody tells you about migration. It's not about moving to a new place. It's about becoming a new person. And you don't become that person all at once. You become them in small choices. Do I correct my name, or do I let them mispronounce it? Do I bring my food to work, or do I eat a sandwich so I don't have to explain? Do I speak my language on the train, or do I switch to English to avoid the stares? Each choice seems small, but small choices, made every day for years, add up to a different person. You're not abandoning who you were, you're just eroding, little by little, so slowly you don't notice until one day you go home and your mother says, you sound different. And you realize you are different, not because you wanted to be, but because staying the same was expensive in ways you couldn't afford. This is what migration does. It doesn't just change where you live, it changes what you're willing to pay to belong. And the price is always the same, pieces of yourself. Now here's where it gets complicated, because while you're changing, the place you left is changing too. Here's what people don't realize. While you're changing, the place you left is changing too. Your best friend got married. You weren't there. You saw the photos on Facebook. You commented, congratulations, with emojis, but you weren't there. Your nephew is 5 now. You send him birthday money. He doesn't know who you are. Your sister holds the phone up to him. Say thank you to auntie. He says it, but his eyes are confused. Who is this person on the screen? Your father got sick. You sent money for the hospital. You called every day, but you couldn't hold his hand. And when he got better, he didn't talk about it. But you both knew you weren't there. Life kept happening, and you were in a different time zone, living a different life, becoming a different person. So when you come back, you're not just different to them, they're different to you. Let me show you what this looks like in real conversations. You arrive for a visit. Your family throws a welcome party. Everyone's there. They're talking fast, laughing at jokes you don't understand because they reference things that happened while you were gone. You smile. You laugh when they laugh, but you're on a 2-second delay, trying to catch up to a life you're no longer part of. Your cousin leans over. You're so quiet now. You used to be the loud one. You weren't quiet. You just didn't have anything to add to a conversation about people you don't know anymore, places you haven't been, experiences you didn't share. Later, your uncle corners you. So, when are you coming back? For good? You freeze, because coming back would mean leaving the life you built, quitting your job, pulling your kids out of school, starting over again. But saying that sounds like, I don't want to come back. So you say, maybe someday. Knowing someday means never. He nods, but his face says, you've chosen them over us. You haven't. You've just chosen the life you're currently living over the life you left. And there's no way to say that without it sounding like rejection. Here's another one. You're on a call with your mother. She's telling you about church, who got married, who had a baby, who died. You're listening, but you're also checking your work email because it's 9 a.m. where you are and your boss is waiting for something. Your mother stops mid-sentence. Are you even listening? You are, but you're also not, because you're living in 2 time zones and 2 realities, and sometimes neither one gets your full attention. I'm listening, Mom. You're always busy now, too busy for us. You want to say, I'm not too busy for you. I'm just trying to survive here. And surviving here means working twice as hard because my accent still makes people assume I'm less qualified. But you don't say that because that conversation is too heavy for a Sunday call. So you just say, I'm sorry, Mom. And you are. Sorry that being here means not being there. Sorry that building a life means leaving another one behind. Sorry that you can't be whole in both places at once. This is the migrant's daily reality. Every conversation is a negotiation between 2 worlds that both expect you to belong fully to them. And you can't, because belonging to one means partial absence from the other. So you live in the gap, the hyphen, the space between here and there, then and now, who you were and who you're becoming. And that space, it's lonely, because the people who stayed can't see your new struggles. And the people where you are can't see what you left behind. Now, let me tell you what this looks like for the children who inherit this split. If you're a migrant, you carry this split. But if you're the child of migrants, you inherit it. You're born in the new place, or you arrived so young you barely remember the old place. But your parents talk about back home like it's holy ground, like it's still yours. They raise you with the values of a place you've never lived. They expect you to speak a language you only hear at home. They want you to marry someone from our culture, except your culture is here, not there. You grow up hyphenated, Nigerian American, Somali Swedish, Pakistani British, but you don't feel hyphenated. You feel fractured. Your parents see you as too Western. You don't respect elders the way you should. You're too independent. You think you're better than us. Your classmates see you as too foreign. Why do you have to ask your parents about everything? Your food smells weird. Where are you really from? You don't fit anywhere, so you learn to perform. You learn to code switch before you even understand what code switching is. You're one person at home, another person at school, another person with extended family, and you're exhausted before you even finish high school. Let me tell you about Chuma. Chuma is 29, born in Houston to Nigerian parents who came in the 90s. She has an American accent. She works in tech. She makes good money. but she feels like she's failing at being both things at once. Her parents wanted her to become a doctor. She became a software engineer. They were disappointed, but accepted it because at least it's respectable. She dates a Black American man, not Nigerian. Her mother doesn't say it outright, but the implication is clear. Couldn't you find one of us? She loves him, but she also feels like she's betraying something, some unspoken contract she signed by being born Nigerian. She goes to Nigeria for a cousin's wedding. Everyone calls her Americana. They ask her questions about America like she's a tour guide. They make jokes about her accent. She doesn't feel American. Americans see her as Nigerian. Nigerians see her as American. She's neither. She's the hyphen. At the wedding, an auntie pulls her aside. When are you getting married? Your mother is worried you'll marry an outsider. Chuma wants to say, an outsider. He's Black. He understands what it means to navigate America as a Black person. Isn't that enough? But she knows it's not, because for her mother, one of us doesn't mean race. It means ethnicity, culture, language, the invisible threads that make you belong. And Chuma is cutting those threads, one choice at a time. She speaks more English than Igbo. She cooks more tacos than jollof. She celebrates Thanksgiving more than Igbo holidays she can't pronounce. She's not doing this to reject anything. She's doing this because she's American. She just happens to have Nigerian parents. But that's not a distinction her parents understand, because to them, Nigerian isn't just what you're born, it's what you choose to stay. And Chuma, she's choosing America, not because she doesn't love Nigeria, but because Nigeria is a place she visits. America is the place she lives. And she's tired of defending her Americanness to Nigerians and her Nigerianness to Americans. Tired of feeling like she's not enough of anything. This is what the children of migration carry, the impossible task of being two things at once in a world that demands you choose. Your parents sacrificed everything to give you a better life, but the better life requires you to become someone they don't fully recognize. And that creates a grief nobody talks about, because how do you grieve someone who's still alive? How do you grieve the child you expected when the child you have is right here, successful but different? You can't. So the grief comes out as, you've forgotten who you are. But you haven't forgotten. You're just becoming someone new, someone your parents never imagined because they couldn't have imagined this life. And that's not betrayal. That's just what happens when you grow up between two worlds. You become something neither world has a name for. Now here's the reframe that changes everything. Here's what most people think this is about. They think migration is about geography, about passports and visas, about leaving one place and arriving in another. That's not what this is about. This is about identity, and identity is about belonging. And here's what everyone gets wrong. They think belonging means fitting into one place. But what if belonging isn't about fitting? What if belonging is about expansion? Here's the reframe that changes everything. You're not split. You're not broken. You're not failing at being one thing. You're succeeding at being multiple things. And the world doesn't have language for that yet. The person who stayed home isn't more whole than you. They just have a singular identity in a singular place. That's one kind of wholeness. You have a plural identity, and that's a different kind of wholeness. Both are complete. They're just shaped by different experiences. When you migrated, you didn't lose your original identity. You added to it. You're not less Nigerian because you live in London. You're not less Ghanaian because you have a Canadian passport. You're not less Somali because you speak Swedish. You're Nigerian and British, Ghanaian and Canadian, Somali and Swedish. And that's not a problem. That's the point. The pain comes from a world that demands singular stories. A world that asks, but where are you really from? As if you can only be from one place. The pain comes from people who see your complexity and call it confusion. But you're not confused. You're just more than they expected. Here's what this means practically. When your family says, you've changed, they're right. You have changed. But you can say, I haven't erased who I was. I've added to it. I'm still Ghanaian. I'm also Canadian now. Both are real. Both are mine. When people in your new country see you as other, you don't have to shrink. You can say, I'm other, and that's valuable. I see things you can't see because I've lived in places you haven't. When your children ask, where am I from? You can say, you're from all the places that made you, your grandparents' village, the city where you were born, the language you speak, the food you eat, all of it, not one or the other, all. The hyphen isn't a gap, it's a space you occupy, and that space is real estate the world hasn't valued yet, but it will. Because the future isn't singular, the future is mixed, hybrid, hyphenated. You're not behind, you're ahead. You're not broken, you're pioneering. You're not stuck between two worlds. You're building a bridge, and bridges are infrastructure for the future. Does this mean the pain goes away? No, you'll still feel split sometimes. You'll still translate yourself everywhere you go. You'll still have moments where you feel like you don't belong anywhere. But you'll know that's not failure, that's the cost of expansion. And expansion is always uncomfortable because the world isn't built for people who are more than one thing, but you are more than one thing. And that's not a liability, that's your superpower. You carry multiple worlds inside you, you speak multiple languages, you understand multiple perspectives. That doesn't make you confused, that makes you rare, not broken, rare. And rare things are valuable. Remember at the beginning when we talked about the grocery store, the woman who asked if you cook African food like you were a tourist in your own identity. Now you can see what was really happening. She was trying to place you. Humans need categories to make sense of the world, and you don't fit in a single category. That's not your failure. That's her limited imagination. And when your mother said, you sound different, she wasn't wrong. You do sound different. But different doesn't mean gone. It means expanded. You haven't lost your language. You've just added another one. You haven't lost your culture. You've just learned to live in multiple cultures at once. And that's hard, but hard doesn't mean wrong. So here's what I want you to sit with. What if migration didn't break you? What if it expanded you beyond what any single place could contain? What if the discomfort you feel isn't because you're split, but because the world keeps trying to cut you down to a size it can understand? What if you're not too African for here and not African enough for there? What if you're exactly the right amount of all the things you are? Because the truth is, you can be from more than one place. You can love more than one language. You can carry more than one home in your heart. And that doesn't make you confused. It makes you complete in a way that people who've never left can't understand. The person who stayed will always see you as changed. And they're right, but change isn't loss. The person in your new country will always see you as other. And they're right too, but other isn't less. You're changed and other and expanded and whole all at once. And that's not a problem to solve. It's a life to live. You don't have to choose. You never had to choose. The world made you think you did because the world is uncomfortable with complexity. But you are complexity, and complexity is beautiful. This is the Context Room, where migration meets identity, where we explore the worlds that shape how we think, live, and choose. Thank you for spending this time with me. You're not from one place. You're from all the places that made you. And that's not something to fix. It's something to carry with pride. You're not half of anything. You're double of everything. And the world needs more of that.